is akin perhaps to Mr. Bush's trip to Vietnam, where he said the lesson of the American experience there was don't quit. The lesson that Vice President Cheney learned from the Nixon White House, according to Ron Suskind's book, The Way of the World, that Cheney viewed Watergate as a failure not because of the break-in or the cover-up or the attempt to subvert the Constitution, but because the president had been over-briefed and therefore lacked adequate deniability. So Cheney tried to establish deniability for his president. But in our fourth story on the countdown, the book's assertions would obviously destroy deniability for the president and would constitute criminal wrongdoing worse than Watergate, as noted by Mr. Suskind in his book. Under a 1991 amendment to statutes that in 1947 created CIA and that govern its actions, there is a passage that reads, "No covert action may be conducted which is intended to influence United States political processes, public opinion, policies, or media." Suskind adding, the operation created by the White House and passed to the CIA pertains to the White House's knowingly misusing an arm of government, the sort of thing generally taken up in impeachment proceedings. Let's turn now to Nixon White House counsel John Dean, author, of course, of Worse Than Watergate, The Secret Presidency of George W. Bush, and a columnist for FindLaw.com. John, always a pleasure. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you, Keith.
Before we broaden out, that CIA statute that he cited, is Suskind right? Is the violation of that, A, did it happen? B, is that by itself an impeachable offense?
Well, I think if indeed it did happen, there's some real problems. I don't think people are looking at it too narrowly, or Suskind is when I read his book. What happens when you tie that with a criminal conspiracy statute, 18 U.S.C. 371, which nailed countless people in Watergate for misusing the agencies and departments of government, that's where they've got a problem. That's where Nixon had a problem for telling the CIA to block the FBI for part of the Watergate investigation. Yes, it was obstruction, but it was also defrauding the government. This is their real problem with that statute. This may be why some of these people are having second thoughts about being on the record with Ron.
Well, once again, as we know, history repeats itself. Suskind has tapes, and the tie between Watergate and this is deniability, plausible deniability, or the lack thereof. Do you, in your opinion, if this book is accurate, if the allegations are correct here, are the links clear enough about the president on the specific issue of knowing criminality?
Well, what I've read in the book so far, no. It looks like Cheney's been very effective in setting up his deniability and always being the fail-safe for Bush. Unless they start waterboarding the vice president, which is not too likely, he is the man that the trail ends right there, as it did with Scooter Libby, for example.
The big picture question, as I've been saying, you saw enough in Bush and malfeasance by the end of 2003 to have titled that book Worse Than Watergate. Suskind says in his that just the Iraq Party is worse than Watergate. Do you concur with his assessment?
Well, I do, and I based mine largely on the excessive secrecy, which he has only added more detail and information about, and the consequences of that secrecy. And, of course, in Watergate, nobody died as a result of Nixon's so-called abuses of power, nor was anybody tortured. So we're playing in a whole different field and on a different level. So I think he is right. It is worse.
The devil's advocate question in this one, John, is the Bush administration ends in 6 months, presumably. Why is simply, getting the shovel, the historical shovel out and covering this up with as much clean and sanctified dirt as we can not enough? Why is forgetting this man and his presidency not enough?
Keith, I think it's more than a devil's advocate question. It really is a central question in the 2008 campaign. If we have another Republican administration, we're going to see more of the same, that the sort of material that's revealed by Suskind. Those people have been well implanted, as we learned from the testimony on the record and the Inspector General's report of what's happening in the Department of Justice. This is really true throughout the government. These people are there, that mentality is there, and if there isn't a serious change of parties controlling the top of the government, we're going to see much more of this.
John Dean, the author of Worse Than Watergate and Broken Government, giving us his assessment of Ron Suskind's reporting tonight, an extraordinary thing as it is. Great, thanks as always, John.
Thank you, Keith.